Subscribe to Teckoh on YouTube or you will forever be a bot at Fortnite.
Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So, improving your mechanics in the past has always been a pretty simple process. The process has always been grind out edit maps, build battles, box fights, etc. But lately, especially in the past few seasons of the game, the mechanical skill of pretty much every player has skyrocketed and hit what seems like a skill ceiling. Honestly, at this point in time, it feels like everyone I run into is just a middle schooler on Adderall who plays 12 hours a day. With that said, falling behind mechanically is one of the biggest concerns for a lot of players, so in this video, I'll be going over a few ways you can continue to improve your mechanics and stay ahead of the curve. But real quick, one more thing, I just wanted to self-promote really fast before we get into it. If you enjoy my content a lot and want to help support me, it would really mean a lot to me if you could consider subscribing, and also if you could use code Teckoh in your Fortnite item shop if you want to help me even further. Even if you rarely buy anything, it still helps me so much more than you think. And with that said everyone, without further ado, let's get into the first method to improve your mechanics. So guys, the first tip I have is to slow down your mechanics. Now, you may think I sound like a complete idiot right now, but hear me out. A lot of these intermediate mechanical players, which may even include you, all tend to have one major issue, and that's missing builds and edits. They have great speed, but they're not very consistent. Have you ever gotten pissed off at a death and thought, my ramp didn't place below me, or I swear I edited that and it didn't go through? If you have this issue, chances are you're trying to move your cursor too fast for your actual mechanical speed. Trust me, I used to be just like you. I always got mad thinking my structures weren't placing or my edits weren't working, but in reality, it was just me being inaccurate and trying to go faster than I really should. Now, to be honest, the mechanics in Fortnite do have some bugs and issues, but I can tell you with 100% confidence that almost every single time it is your fault. If you look at any pro, even high-sense psychos like Mr. Savage or Benji, you'll notice that even if they move their crosshair very fast, they still have good control of it, and they always make sure their builds and edits are going through. So, what can you take away from this? Well, what I'd recommend doing is, for a little while, try to make your mechanics resemble a controller player's mechanics. Play smoother instead of faster, and play at a speed where you're able to make every build, edit, and shot you make all go through to the servers and be accurate. Over time, pick up the speed a bit while still maintaining that control. Even if you have to sacrifice a bit of speed to make your mechanics more consistent right now, over time you'll be able to build your speed back up and you'll eventually be way faster and way more consistent than you were before. So, while you shouldn't just stop trying to build and edit fast, try to practice controlling it and really think about everything you do. Make sure that everything you do actually goes through to the servers and is accurate. You may not notice the benefits instantly, especially because your mechanics will probably be a bit slower, but over time this will make you way better. So, the second tip in this video seems like a common sense one on the surface, but it's actually really important and I see not enough people doing it. And this tip is to play more solo matches. As most of us know, transferring your creative skills into the real game can be extremely difficult, especially when you don't play quite as often as you should in the actual game. One problem I've seen with a ton of players is they play way too much creative and way too little of the actual game. The truth is, creative can only bring you so far in terms of your actual mechanical and fighting skill. While there's always room to improve and get faster mechanics in creative, there's only so much of that you can transfer to the real game at a time. So many aspects of a real fight like loot, positioning, zones, decision making, and so much more are all completely thrown out the window when you play creative over and over. Let me emphasize here that creative is great. I love creative. In fact, I'd say that at times I'm just short of addicted to it. But creative should be a supplement to your real game, not a replacement for it. Another unforeseen consequence of only playing creative relates to your in-game performance. In a real match, you'll have more input lag, likely higher ping, and usually less FPS. But creative essentially simulates a perfect environment that you might run into once in a blue moon. So, if you're not only about improving your mechanics in creative, but also want to improve in game, as much as some of the creative warriors out there might hate to hear this, you have to play the actual game. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. Third up in this video is a tip that you may have heard before, in fact you probably have, but I just don't see enough people trying to do it, and that's to fight against players who are around or above your skill level. I used to be like a lot of you guys. I played the game mostly casually, which I still do, and went against a lot of the same people, mostly my friends who weren't really at my skill level, and I started to realize after a while that it had a negative effect. All I did over and over was clap them up over and over and over and over and over again. Like seriously, I was smacking these kids. I was learning very little and wasn't taking it seriously. Once I realized this, I went into a lot of scrim servers, met up with some players from the practice server even, which is basically full of pro players, and began practicing against these players who were insanely good, many of whom were better than me. Over time, while doing this, I improved my mechanical speed, learned different techniques that these players used and how to counter them, and also watched the fights back from their perspective, which is something we'll get into in a bit, and ultimately learned a ton and became way better mechanically as a result. This whole thing brings up 2 points. First of all, don't play against the same players over and over and over, where everything you do and they do just becomes redundant and you learn nothing from it. Second, try to focus on playing against better players because this will allow you to learn and adapt to the strategies and tricks that really good players use, and will in turn make you much better. Last thing in this section is how to actually find good players to fight against. Depending on your skill level, this could be a number of things. For below average to average players, you could easily get solid practice by just running playground fills or public matches. If you're around average, or just above average, you might want to grind for Champs Arena and play there, where most of the players aren't pro but are decent, and maybe run some unranked scrims in a server like Atlantis, East Open, EU Open, or another one, and also use their looking for group chats to find players for creative, duos, or whatever you want to play. Also, if you need another place to look for teammates and people to play with, you can do that on my Discord server in the looking for group chats, which I'll add a link to in the description. And for pretty high level players, I'd recommend looking for players who place decent in tournaments or have a higher ranking in scrim discords to practice against, because you'll basically just be destroying everybody else. Next up is the fourth tip of this video, and that's to focus on learning new techniques. The meta and techniques in Fortnite are always changing, and if you just sit around doing whatever you feel like doing and not practicing actual beneficial stuff, you'll be hard stuck and won't improve. Tell me, when was the last time you went into creative solely to practice a new technique, or even multiple techniques you found? A ton of channels like It's Jarian, Pro Guides, Orange Guy, Martaz, even my channel, and others can be used to find new techniques to practice and master. Learning new techniques and tricks is actually beneficial in a number of ways. First is the fact that obviously you now know another technique you can use. But second, and the part that's most overlooked, is you'll subconsciously learn new building and movement patterns that'll help you a ton in other techniques as well. If there was one thing that took my mechanics to the next level, it was definitely when I started to go onto YouTube, find new techniques to practice either by watching a tutorial or just watching pro gameplay to find some things that they do, and practicing the technique over and over until I just couldn't mess it up. A lot of what you learn in terms of your mechanics in Fortnite will sprout from other techniques and the maneuvers you learn from them. So, next time you hop into creative, instead of doing the same old thing over and over again, try to find some new stuff to practice and see how it helps. Now, the last tip on this list is to play more build fights during the time you spend in creative. Recently, with the massive upsurge in popularity for box fights, build fighting has sort of gone under the radar. Let me explain something real quick. In-game, almost every fight has 2 phases, the build-up and the box fight. The build-up refers to whatever happens before you directly engage and either eliminate your opponent or get eliminated. This usually happens in 1 or 2 boxes, and it's basically the box fights that we all practice. So essentially, this is what we already practice all the time in creative anyway. The build-up phase, which is what comes first, almost always resembles a playground-style build fight. So practicing build fights will allow you to do better and get more damage off in this first phase of the fight. Another benefit to doing more build fights is that build fighting incorporates almost every aspect of a pure one-on-one fight. You build up, fight for high ground, and it ultimately results in a box fight at the end. I'm a firm believer that build fights are just as important, if not more important than box fights are. If you really think about it, if you practice box fights, you're essentially missing out on half of the fight. But, on the other hand, if you're practicing build fights, you're still experiencing the entire fight. Another good option to practice build fights, or even realistic in-game fights, is to use the realistic 1v1 map by a YouTuber named Fortnite's Finest, which I'll put the code for on screen right now. This basically simulates a real engagement and has limited materials, limited loot, simulates in-game locations, and it's overall probably the closest you can get to a real in-game fight while still playing creative. Anyway guys, that's going to be it for this video. Hopefully this video helped you out so you can improve your mechanics faster. If you enjoyed it and the video helped you out, I would really appreciate it if you could drop a like and possibly subscribe if you'd like to see more. Also, if you want to see more content from me, I'm going to start posting on my second channel actually, which is named Teckoh 2, really creative name, I know. So if you want to see when I upload there, I would appreciate if you could subscribe to that channel as well. I'm basically just going to be posting gameplay videos on really whatever I feel like doing. It's going to be more of an all-around gaming channel instead of just a Fortnite tips and tricks channel like what I do on here. But with that said, the link's going to be in the description. But anyway guys, I hope you all have a great day and I'll see you all next time. Bye for now.